Okay, we are in Yaakov and the Gemara Brachot, page Memched Amabed. I was on the article is 48b3, and we're in the discussion where we're about to deal with how do we know that we have to make a bracha on good or bad. That's what we're really going to be discussing. So Rabbi Meir Omer, Minayin. How do we know? Just that we know we make a bracha on something that happens good. So kach mevarech al hara. How do we know also that one should make a recite a bracha for something that bad happens? So it says Talmud Lomar comes to teach us Asher natana lecha Hashem Elokecha, that the Torah states that He, Hashem, your God, gave to you. And this reference is to the Birkat Hamazon verse, which says, "Varachta et Hashem Elokecha al shin talach," that you shall bless Hashem your God for the land, for that which He has given you. The phrase, the Yashkol explains, the phrase that He gave you refers back to Hashem your God, who was mentioned previously in the verse. Thus, it is as if it were written, "You shall bless for that which Hashem your God gave you," and that means for good or for bad. That's how Reb Meir is looking at this. He says, "The Yancha Elokecha" is a reference to God to being your judge. So thus, the verse teaches that you are to bless the true judge. B'chol din shedancha, for whatever judgment He judges you with, bein midah tova, whether with a good measure or a good trait, bein tova ve'midah paraniot, or whether with a trait of retribution. And again, he explains that the Mishnah will teach below that one is obligated to recite a bracha upon hearing bad things, namely Baruch Dayan Ha'emet, blessed be the true judge, just as he does upon hearing good things, namely Baruch Hatov Meitiv, blessed is the one who does all good. So the giving of the Torah is a manifestation of Hashem's beneficence. Now Reb Meir agrees with Reb Chaya Bar Nachmani that the expression "you shall bless for that He gave you" alludes that we must recite a bracha over the Torah. However, he adds on the basis of the earlier reference to Hashem your God that just as we must bless Hashem for His beneficence in giving us the Torah, so must we bless Him when He metes out retribution. Okay, so he's giving a proof, as it were, a proof text from the Torah and from our benching, which we say whenever we have bread, that we have to thank Hashem for that which is good and that which is bad. So Reb Yehuda ben Betera Omer, he said, Eino tzarech, you don't need to cite that source as a bracha over the Torah. Harehu Omer, it says tova, it says good. Hatova, the good. Tova, what does it mean? Tova, this is Zu Torah, this is the Torah. V'chein hu Omer, and so the verse says in other places, and we say it again whenever we return the Torah to the Aron, we say, Ki lekach tov natati lechem, because a good teaching I gave to you. Ha-tova, the good, is referring to Zo Binyan Yushalayim. That's referring to the one who, the bracha of Bnei Yushalayim. V'chein hu Omer, and it says, in other places, Har-ha, ha-tova, zev, halmanon, the good mountain and the Lebanon. So what's going on here? So he explains that the tova, in the Birkat Hamazon, again reference, is superfluous. We know that it is a good land, since in an earlier verse, in the earlier part of the verse, it says, "For Hashem your God is bringing you to a good land." Since the word is entirely superfluous, we expound both its root, tova, good, and the added extra ha, which changes the word to the good. You understand what's going on here? Whenever we look at a pasuk in the Torah, we have to figure out, and that's why it's so important to understand the grammar and what's going on, but we have to understand we have to look to see if there is a extra word. In other words, I could have got away with that word. And since Hashem is the author of the Torah, and we know as a result of that Hashem didn't waste a letter. never mind a word or phrase. So each letter, each phrase, each word is teaching us something. There's nothing extra in the Torah. So that's where you're starting out with. Okay, you're starting out with that. So now, if you find something that is extra, you have to figure out what's going on. Why would Hashem put that in? Okay, so that's when the Torah Sheba'al Peh kicks into gear to say, okay, I'm glad you noticed it. This is what you should be understanding from that word. Okay, so that's what's going on. Now we go, and that's that whole section of Ein Yaakov. The Ein Yaakov skips the next part. He goes directly to the Mishnah on page 49b3. In this Mishnah, we talk about the zimun. Okay, the zimun is based upon, as we all know, if I have three men who sat down to eat together, then and we learned this before, we become obligated to join in praise of God, and one person leads the prayers by saying Nevarech Ravatai Mevel Bench or Ravatai Nevarech L'Jaman, let's bless Hashem, and we all respond. The other people respond.
How many do all three people have to have eaten bread, or can just two or one of the persons have eaten bread and the other people just join the meal?
Okay, so generally, 3 is best when all three have eaten bread, right. But no, if 2 people have eaten bread and the other one has had, let's say, some mezonot, some sort of cake or something else, then they can join together, but that's not considered sitting down to eat together in reality. Right. In other words, if I want to make a mezuzah, if I want to do more than I'm required to, then I can do that. That person, he's really not required, because he's not going to say Birkat HaMazon. Right. He has to say Alamechia, right? So we're talking about 3 people who are equally bound to say Birkat HaMazon. That's when I become obligated to make the mezuman. And that's when we come to all these rules of, if I have 3 people, then we're not allowed to separate. And we have up to 6. Once we have 6, we can separate 2 and 2. If we have 10, then we can't separate till it's 20, because we keep increasing and so on and so forth. That's when you get all those rules. But that's assuming everybody has joined in with the eating of the bread together. And furthermore, that may even be, and again, you have to think of the old days, as it were, where one person would make the mochi for everybody. Today, for the most part, we're making our own bracha of hamotzi, unless we're at a Shabbos table or a Yom Tov table. For the most part, we're all going to be making on our own. Therefore, we have to have in mind specifically that we're going to come together as a unit to do that. Otherwise, let's say I would go to the lunchroom, and you and your brother would be in the lunchroom. You guys are sitting down, and I said, "Hey, you mind if I join you?" Yes, by all means, Rabbi. It would be indeed a greatest pleasure for you to join us. Great. So now I sit down with you. Does it mean that we automatically became a group? The answer is no. I didn't become a group until I said, "Okay, gentlemen, Ravatai Mevel mentioned." At that point, we became a group. But until then, I didn't become a group with you. You were sitting down. I happened to join you, and in reality, if I finished my sandwich first, because I brought my own stuff, you had your own stuff, we didn't know we were coming together. In reality, I could easily, or you could easily just, finish your meal and go. But we would say, let's do it. And when this happens, really? This happens in schools, in the schoolroom, in the cafeteria. Oh. If you go to a school, a Jewish school, that everybody eating with is Jewish, hopefully, okay? So hopefully day schools are all Jewish. But okay, assuming they are Jewish for a second, and there's no question as to lineage, fine. So we all sit down, and yet when you have that whole bar mitzvah class sitting down, they don't have a mind to make a mezuman, and they don't make a mezuman. And we all look at him and say, "Wait a second, guys, a bar mitzvah. Why did they make him a zuma?" Now, if they really would watch this tape and they would understand, we're really not obligated, Rebbe. If we want, it's our option, as it were, because we didn't sit down with having in mind that we're going to make a unit here. Okay, so that's what I'm saying. So that answers your question in a very long way. I have the ability to make a zimun if I have two people making a mochi and one person making a mizonos, or sometimes even less than that, the halach would say. But in general, we're talking about people who are going to bench together. And again, let's not forget, originally, the guy leading the benching, and it would only be a guy leading the benching in this situation, would say the entire Birkat Hamazon out loud, and you, the audience, if you will, would respond to Amen, not saying the words. I'm exempting you. So again, if you have to make an alamichya, I can't exempt you. Okay. So now it says, Ketzad, and Mishnah starts, Ketzad mizamnim. How do we perform the zimun? So it says, Bishlosha, when there are a total of 3 people. Omer Nivarech, the leader will say, let us bless he of whose we have eaten. In other words, Rabbatai Nivarech. Let's say there's Bishlosha Vahu. When there are 3 people besides him, Omer Baruchu, the leader will say, blessed of who we have eaten. Now, I've never seen anybody do this, and we don't do this. But the Rashi explains, if the leader tells the assembled to bless Hashem, rather than asking them to join in him reciting the blessing, he can do this since there is a quorum without him. So that's why I can say, Baruch Hu. Okay. Like I said, you will never see anybody doing this. Basara, when there are a total of 10 people. So now what do you say? Omer nivareich Elokeinu. Let us bless our God of whose we have eaten. And now we're increasing our recognition of who we're with. And on top of that, we have Hashem. We have a minion there. So that's why we can do this. So it says the version is recited only when 10 people are present, because it requires the mention of Hashem in names in the zimun requires a kehillah, which can have no less than 10 men, and that we know from the Gemara Megillah. Ba'asaravahu. So now, when there are 10 people beside him, Omer Baruch Hu. Again, he says, blessed our God of whose we have eaten. Now here is something that nobody does, but we're going to learn it, okay? Because the Mishnah continues on. We don't rule like this. Again, I've never seen anybody do it. I don't think we rule, so I have to assume we don't rule like this at all. I'm sorry, I went too far. This one we do. Achad asara v'achad asara riboy. Whether this text of Nevarech Elokeinu is pronounced whether there are 10 people or 10 million people. 10,000 people, excuse me. 10 times 10,000 is 100,000. Right? 100,000, well, there's 100,000 people. Okay, so now that's what we do. That's true. Whether it's 100 or a million or 10 billion, doesn't matter. Everybody's going to say Nivarech Elokeinu. That was the Tanakhama. Now we come into a second part of the Mishnah. B'meya, what do you do when there's 100 people? Who omer? So the leader will say Nivarech Hashem Elokeinu. Now we keep increasing because of the amount of people there. We keep increasing the praise of God, corresponding or correlating to the amount of people that are there. The more people you have, the greater it is. Barov Am Haderet Melech. In the majority of people, Hashem will be glorified, as it were. So that's what the mission is going on. If there are 100 people, the leader says, Nivarech Hashem Elokeinu. Let us bless Hashem, our God of whom we've eaten. B'me'avahu, again, when there's 100 people beside him, Omer Baruch Hu. He starts off that way. Be'elev, let's say it's 1,000 people. Who Omer Nivarech Hashem Elokeinu. Let us bless Hashem, our God, Elokei Yisrael, the God of Israel. Be'elev, it's just 1,000 and him. So then you say Baruch Hu. Beribo, let's say there's a total of a myriad of people, 1,000 people. So Omer, again I'll say Nevarech Hashem Elokeinu, Elokei Avra Yisrael, so Hashem our God. Let us bless Hashem our God, the God of Israel, Elokei Tzavakot, the God of the hosts, Yoshev HaKeruvim, who dwells by the Keruvim. Al Hamazon She'achalnu, for the food that we have eaten. When there are myriad, 1,000 people and him, Omer Baruch Hu, he says Baruch Hu. In the same manner that the leader recites the bracha, there's the introductory part, Kach Omrim Acharav. So also the assembled will respond after him. For the example being, Baruch Hashem Elokeinu Elokei Yisrael Elokei Tzavakot Yoshev HaKeruvim Al Hamazon She'achalnu, namely, blessed is Hashem, our God, the God of Israel, the Lord of hosts, who dwells by the Keruvim for the food we have eaten.
What are the Keruvim?
The heavenly, actually I'll go back to what the Torah is saying. The Torah says on top of the Aaron, on the Aaron you have these Keruvim, which they describe that looks like it has a face of a baby and has wings, and it's
there's two things on top of the Aaron.
Right.
A face toward each other when it's good, and face away from him.
Correct.
Okay.
So that is your Keruvim. So the Keruvim was also, they're angelic characters.
Can we take a quick measurement? Or we
Go ahead. Do what you have to do. Yep. So they are people who, they're the angels that, by the way, those things on top of the Aaron are not the angels, they're representative of. Okay. So, and that's why you're not allowed to make more than what Hashem dictated. Now, Hashem said you should make 2, so it says you're not allowed to make more for your synagogues or whatever else you're going to put, because that would already be idolatry. You can only make it for the Aaron, and why they were there also could be a great question to ask. I don't know the answer for that, but why Hashem decided to put that there, it was also, it's a hashkafically a very good question. And one day I'll learn the reason and I'll give it over. Until now I haven't found a good one. So, okay, and he explains. Oh, so we're all set. Okay, so now the Mishnah states, right, so now we're going to get into an argument here. It says, Rav Yossi HaGlili Omer, he says, Lefi rov HaKahal Him Mevarchim, they vishat the bracha in accordance with the size of the semblance. Shenamar, how do we know that? Because it says in the verse, Makelot Baruchu Elokim Hashem Kol Yisrael. Because it says in Psalms, in the assemblages, blessed Hashem from the source of Israel. Amar Rav Akiva. So Rav Akiva said, "My matzenu b'beit hakneset." What do we find in the shul with regard to prayer? Echad marubim, the echad mu'atim. We find that there is no difference whether there are many or there are few. Once a threshold of 10 is reached, Omer Baruch Hu Hashem, the leader would always say, blessed Hashem, regardless of the size of the kehillah, of the congregation. So is it concerning the zimun. Once the threshold of 10 is reached, the text remains the same, regardless of the semblance, the size of the semblance. So he brings down Rashi to explain that the text changes each time. This is according to the Rav Yossi HaGlili, that the text would change each time the size of the semblance reaches a new threshold. As the Mishnah just stated, there are various special versions for groups of 10, 100, 1,000, and 10,000. We thus learn that the previous ruling reflects the opinion of Rav Yossi HaGlili. The Gemara will explain the Mishnah's first ruling, that there is no difference between a group of 10 and a group of 10 myriads, was stated by Rabbi Akiva, who proceeds to dispute Rabbi Yossi HaGlili's ruling. And Rabbi Yossi HaGlili agrees that the synagogue prayer text does not vary. So, and then you'd have to see why he makes that sort of distinction. But do you understand what's going on here? According to Rabbi Yossi HaGlili, he says because you have this pasuk in Psalms, namely in the assemblages, bless God Hashem from the source of Israel, he saw that as an opening to increase our praise in Birkat Hamazon to the group. And as compared to Rabbi Akiva, who said, no, you don't do that, and he brought a proof from the synagogue. We could have 10 people, we could have 1,000,000 people here. We don't change the text. So if we're not going to change the text in that situation where we're involved with praise of Hashem constantly, so Kol v'chomer, I guess, you would not want to start increasing it when you're coming to just Birkat Hamazon. Okay? That possibly is the reason. Now, what happens is next is we conclude with what is the correct text as what to say in synagogue prayer. So Rabbi Yishmael Omer, he said, remember Rabbi Akiva just said, Baruch Hu et Hashem. That's what Rabbi Akiva said. So Rabbi Yishmael said, no, you say Baruch Hu et Hashem HaMavorach, which is of course what we do. Blessed Hashem, the blessed one, merely is blessed Hashem, and that's just talking about what we do in the shoals. Okay, so that's what's going on there. And then it says in the Gemara, Amar Rav, this here. Yeah, right there. Good, it finishes off. So it says, Amar Shmuel Leolam Lo Al Yotzi Adam et Atzmo min HaKlal. When blessing Hashem, one should never exclude himself from the group. Thus, when 4 people join in zimun, the leader should include himself by saying, let us bless of he who we have eaten, rather than exclude himself by telling others, bless he of who we have eaten. Okay, so that's basically what we're following to this very day, where we don't separate from the group. We see this many times that we shouldn't separate ourselves from the group. Rashi's okay, so it's just something you can keep in mind. Here, he's talking about specifically benching, but it could be, you could really extend that out to mean that you shouldn't separate at all under any circumstances. And that's why when it comes to, let's say, tefillin on Chol HaMoed, if you're in the shul that wears it, you should wear it. If you're in a shul that doesn't wear it, you shouldn't wear it. So you should not separate. If it's yourself from the kihila. If you're in a shul where some wear it and some don't, so then you don't have to worry. Okay, but it's the bonus says when it's on this thing, if a person's trying to separate himself from the klal, the be'inyan the bein rab bein tov, whether it's for good or for bad, mechse yohara, you're going to seem arrogant. Im bara lo mashu hu tov, if one is bad, you say that is good. V'yashar and just, and you're going against the others. Hello. That's what we learned that from Moshe Rabbeinu, who said you should not do like all that we have done to this day. And Yeshaya was like saying it was like Sodom and Gomorrah. And if it's for good, that when he would say Baruch Hu Nira Kimitzavel Acherim, so then it's like he's commanding, it would appear as if he is commanding to somebody else, sheyevav, to others, sheyevarchu et Hashem, that they should bless Hashem, for whom machzik atzmo gadol hamala, and so now he's putting himself on a higher level, rather than submitting himself to having to make a bracha. So that's another thing. When we separate, in this particular instance, specifically in this instance, we separate from the group and we say, let's praise Hashem, it's like saying, well, we don't have to, but you have to, but we don't have to. I don't have to, I should say. And so that's one of the reasons that Shmuel would say that the person who is leading the benching, even if there are 4 or 101 or 1,001 or 10,001, that he should not separate himself from the bracha, but rather he should say nivarech l'Elokeinu, and so on and so forth. Okay, very good. So now let's go on, and now we go to page 50, and it's on Birkat Shel Adam. Let me just Find it here. Okay, so it's on page 50A1, and it's right. Wait a second. It starts with the words "Mevir kotav." From the blessings of man is recognized if he's a Talmid Chacham or not. That's what we're looking for. Oh, so it says the brighter continues. Okay, you have it. On that page 50A1 is 1, 2, 3, fourth paragraph. Mebekotov shall Adam, from one's recitation of his blessings, nikar im Talmid Chacham hu im lav. It can be discerned whether one is a Torah scholar or not. Ketzad, how is the case? What's the case here? Rabbi Omer, he says, ubetuvo. If one reciting the zimun bracha says, blessed is he of whose we have eaten, and through whose goodness we live, hareza Talmid Chacham. We can discern that he is a Talmid Chacham. Umituvo, but if he says umituvo instead of ubetuvo, he says, changes the debate with the man. Umituvo, and from whose goodness we live, hareza bor. We can understand that he is an ignoramus. It's even worse than an ignoramus. A bore is a bore. But same Hebrew words is English. For he's saying that he minimizes Hashem's control of his goodness. Yeah.
When he says bore, is that bore as in someone who doesn't know much, or bore as in literally saying he's like a wild boar, like a pig?
He doesn't know anything.
Okay. B-O-O-R, bore.
Right. B-O-O-R.
Not bore as in someone who's tiresome.
I'm sorry?
Not bore as in someone who's tiresome.
No.
Yeah, that's three different words.
Correct.
Bore. And also bore.
He's not a B-O-A-R. He's not a B-O-R-E. He's a B-O-O-R.
It's not bore as in to bore something into something.
That's a B-O-R-E.
Oh.
Okay.
No.
So he's just the one who is ignorant.
Yeah, he's
but the reason I don't like the word ignoramus as they're translating it is because an am ha'aretz would be translated as ignoramus, and a bore is below an am ha'aretz. So a bore is normally is a person who just doesn't get it. He doesn't understand it. He doesn't understand social cues. He just does what he wants, and he's just, at least the Amma Arts understands social cues, and he will understand that he doesn't know everything. The boar actually thinks he knows everything, and as a result doesn't learn. So that's the boar. Also, a boar is a pit.
Oh, okay.
So a pit is an empty pit, So also, they picked an interesting word to describe a person who is a bore. A pit, just an empty pit. That people can fall into and never get out and kill themselves in. But, so that's, something you should think about too. Okay, so now what we're talking, we're looking at the brachas that we're saying, fine. So that was, so the connotation from his goodness that we live is that Hashem bestows only a small measure of his goodness upon us, just enough to sustain our lives. So you don't want that sort of thing. So then Amrle Abaye, so we should be at the same place, right? Lost my place again. Oh yeah, Amrle Abaye Ravdimi Vachtiv. But it's written Umibir kadcha yivorach beit avdecha leolam, and from your blessing may the house of your servant be blessed. Wait a second, you just told me, this is his question. Abaye's interrupting me, you just told me, it says umituvo, that, and from his goodness, which means that we're limiting. So that is your bore, and that shows he's not that shows that he's not a Talmid Chacham. But I have a pasuk, and the pasuk is again in Shmuel, and this Shmuel Beit, and it's a prayer that he explains it was uttered by King David, and it says, "If from your goodness connotes only a minimal amount of goodness, why would King David ask Hashem to bless him from your blessing? Why would King David, who was a known Talmid Chacham, ask with a mem instead of the bait? You understand the question? You're saying ubetuvo is a Talmid Chacham. Umituvo, and from your goodness, is a bore.
Okay, so
Yet,
is it bait? What
what does that mean? By whose? Through whose?
Oh.
Goodness we have eaten. Through whose versus from whose.
Okay.
And yet we see that David HaMelech used the same language as what we're calling the bore, and we know he wasn't the bore, we know he was a Talmid Chacham. So he was such a Talmid Chacham, it says in the Gemara Brachot, that in this Gemara that it says that David could not, that the Satan, the Melech HaMavet could not get David because he was studying Torah all the time. So he had to trick him in order to get. He had to, by scaring, by making him hear something, so he would turn away from his sefer, as it were, his book, so he would stop learning. At that point, it could kill him. But if he was such a Talmid Chacham, why would he say umi birchatcha instead of umi ubebirchatcha? Why wouldn't he say through your blessing? So the Gemara answers, b'she'ela shani. With regard to requesting a blessing from Hashem, it's different, as it is appropriate to request large favors. When praising Hashem, however, one must be profuse. In other words, when I'm asking you for something, I ask for a little bit. When I'm asking humbly, as Rashi says, like a beggar who does not have the audacity to ask for large favors. But once I'm praising you, so that you open your mouth widely, which means request. Okay, so that's what you have to do. You have to. I mean, once you're praising him, you have to do it with all the praise there is. So that's when you would say ubituvo as compared to umituvo. Yeah, understand? Everybody got that? Great.
So, yeah.
Sorry?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Then it says, so the Gemara asks, b'she'ela nami hichtiv. But when it comes to a question, you just told me when it comes to a question, you make your question, you don't ask for so much. But then, wait a second, we have another pasuk. Again, this verse is in Psalms, and it says, Harchev picha b'malehu. Open your mouth widely, and I, Hashem, will fill it. Which means, request all that you desire. Ask for everything you want, and I'm going to give it to you. That is, as Rashi says, "Shol kol ka'avadcha." Ask for all your desires. So if that's the case, wait a second, you just told me that when I'm asking for something, that I should ask for a small amount, like a person who's begging and doesn't have the audacity to come before you. And now now in Psalms, again written by David HaMelech, it says, open your mouth widely and ask what you'd like. Same person. So the Gemara says, Hahu b'divrei Torah kativ. That verse was written in regard to comprehending the words of the Torah, and that's when it's proper to ask Hashem for a bountiful blessing in that area. So if I'm asking for, again, money, or whatever it is like that, so I shouldn't be very humble with my request. So all the people, including myself, who were saying, come on, God, $1 billion, it's such a small amount. Okay, it's not such a good thing, because who knows. But if I'm asking to give me the ability to understand Torah much better, so that would be a good thing to ask for. Okay. Now we go to the next page. This is on. Am I right? Yeah, it's on the base. It says. Okay, so this we have to go to. You're looking for 4 things which said about bread. Okay, and we're on. Let's find this pretty quickly. Okay, here it goes. It's on 50 and 50b2. And it's right. It's saying having touched. If you haven't, 50b2. It says having touched upon the subject of using bread for a mundane purpose. So the Gemara now relates to Braita. It says, Tana Rabbanan, our rabbis learned in a Braita, Arba Devarim Nemru Pat. 4 things were said concerning bread. Ein manichem basar chai ala pat. We do not place raw meat on bread. And the reason is, why would you think that I'll ask you, why do you think that we should not put raw meat on bread?
Because they will bleed into the bread.
And what will happen to it?
It makes the bread unkosher.
No.
Oh, sorry, not bleach. Impure.
No.
It'll make it not. What is it for meat? Like not dairy, not parve.
It'll make it disgusting. You're going too much. You're going too Jewish.
Okay.
If I have bread, if I put raw meat on the bread, it's going to make the meat disgusting. It's going to make the bread disgusting. Do you ever have tuna fish sandwich?
Yes.
Okay. Do you ever have tuna fish sandwich on white bread?
Yes. Well, some once or
Not toasted, but white bread.
Toasted once or twice.
Okay. So if your mother would give you, it depends on how your father or father makes the tuna fish. If you like a lot of mayonnaise,
Right.
if you like a lot of mayonnaise, so then it can be watery. Now you put that on white bread, not toasted white bread, just white bread. If I eat it right away, it's very good. It's not a problem. It doesn't soak through. But if I don't eat it right away, what normally will happen is the edges, if not the middle itself, will become soggy. And anybody who's ever had to bite into a soggy sandwich of any type finds, as far as I'm concerned, it's repulsive. And you don't want to eat it anymore. Okay, so now...
It tastes like blood.
What?
Especially if it tastes like blood.
Okay, what I'm saying is now, is if the bread is going to become disgustingly repulsive for whatever reason, it came soggy, it looked like blood, whatever else, so that's why the rabbis are telling you, you should not put raw meat on a verse. I mean, there's nothing really mystical about this. You should not put it on the bread. Okay, that's number one. Number two.
Rabbi,
yeah.
what purpose will that serve? Or would this be don't eat a raw meat sandwich?
By the way, in those days they ate raw meat.
Right. Oh, okay.
It wasn't like they couldn't eat more meat. They were just saying you shouldn't put on bread because
Okay.
it makes the bread. It makes the bread repulsive. But they used to eat. People still eat raw meat. Like
Bologna. Bologna. Or is bologna raw? I don't think
No, bologna is
it's
cooked.
recooked.
No, bologna is
Recooked.
cooked. So are all hot dogs. But you could have, if you would take hamburg meat, you grind the meat up.
Mm-hmm.
Some people, I never wanted it, but some people eat that raw. They don't, not medium rare, not raw, not rare, raw. They just eat it right after grinding it. Do you ever see anybody doing that?
In Germany, if you order a hamburger in northern Germany, it's raw meat on a bun.
Really? In Germany, it's raw meat. Oh wow! That's how they serve the hamburger, raw meat.
That's what they call a hamburger.
Okay, I'll know not if I ever go to Germany, I will never order a hamburger by them. Yet you don't tell them to cook it.
Wait, can you specifically say an American hamburger?
Then they'll give you fat.
Oh, okay.
American hamburger is McDonald's, and you don't want to get involved.
Someone say, oh, I'll play some football, and they say, oh yeah, football, and you take it to soccer field. Like, no, American football. You have to specify what you're saying.
Right. So I don't know, but it's okay. But that'll be the first thing. So that's interesting. They still do hamburger. They still in Germany. They still sell it. Okay, they still sell it raw. I didn't know they would. I didn't know they did that. And it's considered delicacy.
That's just normal.
Normal.
Blood sausage is another one that's absolutely gross.
What is that? What's blood sausage?
It's made with the blood of the animal in the sausage casing. And
Oh.
It's disgusting.
Who eats that?
Germans.
Germans. Okay, so.
It's disgusting.
Okay. Explains why they do what they do. Okay. I said a part joke, but it says that we're not allowed to eat the blood of an animal because of the stuff you get from the animal. So, that's bloodlust that you get.
You are what you eat.
Yeah, you are what you eat. I mean, it wasn't.
If you eat blood, you want blood. It tastes
Yeah,
good to you.
it's an amazing thing. See, the rabbis, what they were talking about. Okay.
It goes with what we were saying, that the same word doesn't always mean the same thing.
Right. 100%. The same word does not always mean the same thing. 100%. Okay, so it says, another thing it says is, V'ein ma'avirin kosmale al pat. And the second thing you should not do is you don't pass a full cup over the bread. Why wouldn't you want to do that? Anybody have anything to say for that?
A full cup of what?
Anything.
Oh, just full cup of anything?
Yeah.
So wait, water or salt? Or
Doesn't matter. No, it has to be. You're not going to put a salt into a cup. Normally, you're not going to put salt into cups.
What's the measuring cup for like?
Okay, we're not talking about measuring. They didn't have measuring cups.
Drinking cups.
Drinking cups.
Okay.
So you're at a meal.
Oh, okay. Over bread?
When you're passing over bread, like
Here's bread. You asked me for soup. I pass it over the bread.
It might drip on the bread.
Here's what?
It might drip on the bread.
Good. May drip on the bread, and that's what's going to happen to the bread.
Make it soggy.
Make it soggy. Make it become disgusting. So you don't want to do that. Okay. Next thing is ein zorken et a pot. You don't throw the bread. Why don't I'm over here. I'm in Hamotzi, and you're over there. So I throw you the bread. Why shouldn't I throw you bread?
I think I have two reasons. One, isn't
Go ahead.
there a thing where you shouldn't pass the bread to someone? You should have it on a plate for them to take the bread.
You shouldn't pass it to a person direct. You shouldn't give it to his hand. Why not?
Because it makes it feel like it's poor.
Okay.
Also,
Interesting.
you might
Yeah.
miss and land on the floor.
Say that again.
Also, another thing is you might miss it and land on the floor.
We're not really concerned about that.
Okay.
We're concerned that you're going to make the guy feel bad, or you're going to you're being stingy about it. So what's the other thing you remember?
Oh, I thought it was going to, you pass it. And it
Okay.
goes past
So
him.
why can't I throw it at the person?
Oh, it might hit him. Would it hit him? Would that be better?
No.
Okay.
No.
it's a piece of bread.
Okay.
So again?
It's a piece of bread. It's not gonna hurt, right?
Well, I know
Right. It's not going to happen. So why else? So why wouldn't I do it?
I don't know.
Because what's going to happen is if I throw it, it's as if I degraded the bread.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's why, right here, take the bread, okay? Now, some people I have seen, religious people, they're at the table and it becomes a game and they will throw it to their kids, okay? But it's like throwing it to the animals, you know?
Yeah.
But it's, I don't know, the person certainly would have known this Gemara. I don't know the person well enough to ask him why he did it so many years ago. And maybe when he saw this Gemara he stopped, I have no idea. But, because I know he must have seen this. This is brachot, so he must have seen it. But it's something that nobody really does. What we end up doing is passing it on the plate. We put it on the plate, or what happens is, if somebody's right next to you, I can put it down in front of them, and they can take it from there. The other thing that also comes into this is, people don't really like me to touch their food, or you to. I don't want you touching my food. So it's better if I just cut it, put it on a plate, and the less touching, the better. So here I pass you the basket, and you take what you want. You don't have to touch every piece. And as a matter of fact, what happens when people do touch? When you have young kids and they start to look, you say, just take a piece, pass it on. You get, people don't like when you do that. So the more fastidious we are today, it could be a result of this too. But it's we just don't like it. Yeah.
Could that be a reason why? Also, because I remember during the plague years when Europe had plagues and stuff, or the Black Plague.
Right.
But they would accuse Jews of being the ones who poisoned the wells because we weren't getting sick as much because I thought it was because we washed our hands, but also because we're not touching all of our food as much.
Not only did we wash our hands, but we also washed the fruit. We washed the food. We cleaned it off because it's halacha. Long before the Black Plague, but it was a halacha that we have to wash our foods.
Jews are actually clean people.
I don't know. Clean? I don't know if it's clean or not.
As long as they follow, I think they're.
But we're following halacha, so we follow halacha. So that's why the Jews weren't dying. And you're right. The Christians thought we were poisoned, and that they used that as an excuse to just kill us. Right, but it was no excuse to kill us.
Right.
But it wasn't really a matter of we didn't poison the wells. That's a clear thing, and it was because we washed before eating, and because we were generally clean, that we were doing. But again, we were clean as a result of the halacha demanding that of us. So here's an instance of where the halacha turns out to be a good rule of hygiene, and it ends up saying, so you could, is that why God said we should do it? No, it's not why God, not specifically why he said we should do it, but it's a byproduct of us doing it. You want to say something?
Well, I was going to say this throwing of food, that's reminiscent of what you do to animals out of pigsty or,
okay.
When you're chickens and things.
Right.
You don't treat people like that. But this thing with the disease too is when you have these blessings with the meal, with every type of food, it shows the sanctity of food that comes from God. It needs to be treated with respect.
Okay.
That
Correct.
You don't mix all these things together and you.
Right. No, it certainly is. When we make a bracha, it certainly is showing the sanctity of the food. It's showing that we appreciate what the food is coming from. Another thing that it does, and this is more existential, if you will, it protects us, because God is saying, "Oh, you recognize where it's coming from." Now, if I'm not going to suggest that if I have spoiled food that is rancid, and I make a bracha on it, that I'm going to be saved from the food poisoning that is about to come at me. You will not be saved. You will get sick, and you have only yourself to blame, because the Torah says very specifically, the rabbi tells very specifically, that I'm not allowed to make a bracha on something that is not fit to eat. So I can't say, well, I made a bracha, I took my insurance policy, and now I'm safe. It's what it's looking at is, if in general the food is good, and I recognize from whom it's coming, and I make a blessing before, and I make a blessing after, taking all these precautions, if you will, following halacha, the halacha will protect me from any of these dangers that I may have, that other people may end up ingesting. And I will be the one that was saved, because I fought. Again, this is not a guarantee. I'm not saying it's a guarantee or anything, but this is what the philosophy is coming on. That is, God is shomer patayim. God guards the fools. Sometimes we make bad judgments, but we follow the rules, as it were. So Hashem will protect His little fools. Okay, so that's something we have to keep in mind too, and that's why we can go sometimes to places. Like when I went to Gary, Indiana by accident and stopped there. Gary apparently is a very dangerous place, murder capital of the United States, I think. I thought Chicago would be. Indiana, certainly. Okay, that's our, okay. And I didn't know anything about it. I stopped there, and Baruch Hashem, nothing happened to me. But who knows, if I would have known like I do now, I never stop in Gary anymore. I'll go to the next town to go to the bathroom. Leave me alone. I don't want to put myself in danger for that. But it's that's again, God guards His little fools, because we didn't know any better. Okay, yeah. I'm sorry. You were going to say?
I was going to say it's interesting. Many of the kosher laws, and many of the food, the prayers and practices. It's like it envisions germ theory before anybody.
Yes, I'm telling you.
And with certain cultures,
right,
they're much more successful because they carried these out.
Well, it's amazing when you look. That's what I'm saying. If you look at why Hashem or why the rabbis decreed these rules, there's no hint of health codes with it. Well, normally not. But when it comes to as we grow with our knowledge of science and everything else, we see that there's a byproduct here. Well, I just want to finish off this thing about bread. The final thing we cannot do with bread is ein somchim et ka'ara b'pat. We do not support a plate with bread. And again, the same sort of reason. He brings down Rabbeinu Yonah, says, for its contents might spill on the bread and render it repulsive. The Rishonim discuss at length whether this bride can be reconciled with the previous ruling of Shmuel, that one can use bread for all his needs. The matter hinges on the question of whether Shmuel permits using bread even for a purpose that will cause it to become ruined. And the halachic consensus is the bread may not be used in a manner that will ruin it. So whenever I should tick you up, what?
No, 2 questions.
Yeah, 2 questions. Go ahead.
All right. Why would you support a plate with bread?
You put bread on.
You have, remember the bread. First of all, the bread is thick.
Yeah.
It's a harder piece of bread. It's not the white bread that we get at the store.
Yeah.
Okay, so what happens is I have soup here. I have soup, so I put the soup up. So I want it into my mouth. So I put it up, and I can now, instead of holding it up, maybe I have something else in my hand, maybe with a baby in my hand, I don't know. So now I support it up, and I can take with the spoon. That would be one of the reasons you could put it up on the plate. You want to tilt it For whatever reasons you want to tilt it.
Okay.
Well, I don't know why you want to tilt it, but for whatever reasons you want to tilt it. Another instance, by the way, would be, and they do this, this is a new fancy Mishagasim, they call it bird's nests, where they make something of bread, a bowl of bread, and you put stuff into the bread like a soup.
Or a salad.
A salad or soup, something like that. And that would also be a question, halachically. I mean, everybody seems to allow for it, but that to me would seem to be a question. Aren't I ruining the bread? Because I'm hollowing, first of all, I'm hollowing out of the bread. I'm throwing bread away. I don't know what I'm doing with that bread. Maybe I'm using it for something else, hopefully. But more than that, if I put salad dressing in, it's going to, again, unless it's toasted, I guess, it must be toasted, but it seems to be that it's going to ruin the bread. Now, certainly if I don't eat the bread, in addition, that could also be a problem. Okay, so, what's the second question?
Well, when it says you can use the bread for anything, or something like shmuel or something.
That was Shmuel's opinion, you can use bread for for his needs, not anything.
Yeah,
for his needs.
So that means if you have a plate or a bowl full of like soup, and you finish all the solvent of the soup, but there's still a little like sediment of soup around it, can you take a bread and like mop the bread?
Oh, that's surely you can do, because you're going to eat the bread.
Yeah, okay.
That's not a question. Anything, if you're going to eat the bread, it's not considered wasting the bread. But if I'm going to do something that's potentially degrading to the bread, throwing it, or that's a lack of, one second, it's a lack of, common decency. I'm throwing God's bounty around. I don't want to do that. And, or passing stuff over the bread without concern of something falling over and ruining it. So I have to be careful with what I'm doing. Yeah, Daniel.
What about eating bread when you're full?
Eating bread when you're full?
Eating it even if you're full, even if you're not completely satisfied.
That's just.
Why are you eating bread if you're not
No, I'm asking.
I'm asking why would somebody do that?
It's a theoretical question.
But with every theoretical question, you have to have some sort of reason. So I'm asking, why is the person eating it? Is he eating it just to be a pig? And did he make a bracha before him? I'm not sure where he's getting the bread from.
Okay, my question is that okay? Are you allowed to eat bread just to eat bread? Or is it
It's all right to eat bread. I mean, if he's going to eat so much he's going to vomit, that would be a different question. But if he wants to eat the bread, he can eat the bread, yeah. Okay, we'll stop here.